Okay, so hello people, welcome to this talk on road tripping in Second Life, and thank you for joining us. I'm going to be talking today to Yuki and Soull, that's Soull Starlight and Yukiko Yeshto, about road tripping in Second Life, and I hope that if people have stories, they'll share them with us as well. So let's start off with a few basic questions. I'd like to ask both of you how you came to be involved in Second Life. When did you hear about it and when did you decide to join?
Hey, I can start. And Saffia, thank you so much for having us on the show. We really appreciate it. So I'm Soull, and I started my SL journey in 2007. I think it was like January 2007. I was in a community history class and actually learned, excuse me, from my teacher that there was this virtual community that was being started. She was kind of dressed as Miss Frizzle and she rode around on a broom, just kind of flying around Second Life and showing different, things. So it was really something that grabbed my interest immediately. And I did an anthropology study actually on communities within Second Life and how people build communities. So my first entry into Second Life was actually as a research project. And of course, after a while, I loved it. And I've been here for 15 years now. So that's my
Right.
story.
So, how about you, Yuki?
Well, I heard of Second Life, I think the first time back in 2005 or 2006. I don't remember exactly anymore. It was a friend of mine who told me about it, and I knew her already from a chat platform. And she said Second Life is something that combines chatting and visuals in a total different way, and I think you could be trusted in joining it. So someday I checked it out, I enjoyed it, and I stayed. Um, when I started, I was first involved with role play mostly, but at some point I heard more about other parts of Second Life because those role play communities would usually stay on private estates. And I
Right.
had never heard of Mainland before that. So one day I was introduced to it and I enjoyed it because it gave me so much possibilities to go road tripping and I didn't stop since then.
Right. There's a lot of mainland to explore, of course. So I believe,
Absolutely.
sorry, so go on.
Oh, just agreeing with you, saying absolutely. I agree.
So both of you, I think, are also involved in Bellisseria.
That's correct. I would say Yuki a bit more so than me. I've been in Bellisseria since 2019, around the time when the homes first dropped. So I was in the home playing lottery for a little bit, and I got my first traditional, right, I think in like I was really excited to join the community. I joined Bellisseria Citizens. I rode with Bike Ride and Scoot. And more recently, I started to just kind of follow and support efforts of the BBB. I'll let Yuki share.
Yes. Um, so my involvement with Bellisseria started actually when I was curious about what's happening there, because it was quite obvious from the beginning on that the Bellisseria continent was located at a spot where we could kind of foresee that maybe the continents would finally be connected, something that many people have hoped for a long time. So I was following all those discussions where people were hoping one day this dream will come true, and that was really a very exciting time, at least for me. And the other thing that made me curious about Bellisseria is the part of SL history connected to it, because the moles are actually oftentimes people who are or were residents just like us, and I myself am involved with various creative people who are creating from scratch mesh, sounds, scripts, and so on and so forth. And it was interesting to see what they did and how they worked with also the limitations that we face, and how they would implement all these things to make sure that Bellisseria is a nice part to live in and to explore. So this was my first connection with Bellisseria. And then, of course, the more we had, the more we were able to travel along the roads. And I myself am a big fan of traveling in Second Life. So um, I started with mainland tours already before, doing bus tours, and expanded it onto Bellisseria as well, and got involved with the Bellisserian Bureau of Bureaucracy, which is shortened BBB. That's my story.
So we're here at NatureCon, which is, of course, in part about exploring Second Life. I was interested what you just said about taking the bus tours. I didn't know we had bus tours in Second Life.
Yes, there are actually quite a lot groups or individuals who are offering bus tours all around the continents. There are also a lot of travel groups where people offer rides. For example, there are such groups like Passengers Wanted, and that's where people are connecting with each other so
Mm-hmm.
they could enjoy it. And I'm just one of many who offers bus tours as well.
This is
Yeah,
amazing. I
I can speak
had
more
no
to
idea. Go on. Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot. So another group is Passengers of SL, and they, like Yuki mentioned, offer rides, just individual drivers who offer rides or groups that offer routes. And a lot of times those routes are centered around mainland attractions. So there may be an airport close, there may be different stores and cafes and little cute things to visit. So it's definitely worth it to take a ride. On Corsica, even through Airbnb, my rental agency, we have a couple of bus depots that are hoping to ride around the Cirque. So yeah, there's a lot to see and do, and a lot of bus tours and things available. So definitely keep an ear out for those.
That's amazing. I mean, I've heard of, I've done the Havana Clown Fair road trips on her in her little podcars, but they'll only take two people. And I have done some train travelling as well, but I had no idea there were buses and escorted tours. That's brilliant. Can you tell me some of the places they might go?
That is, of course, up to the conductor or driver. If we are talking about buses or trains, apart from those which are scripted for automatic
Yeah.
traveling, so to speak. Um, the fun thing is that those buses and those trains can take quite a few people. So the bus that I'm using, if I remember right, can take up to 24 passengers. And I think the highest number I ever had on a bus at once were 15 people. And as you know, Second Life is a challenge if it comes to
Mm-hmm.
the technical limitations, so to speak. We have this ongoing issue of lag, so to speak, though lag is mostly happening on viewer side. For example, um, alpha glitch bug, we have heard of that probably quite a few times. That is when the viewer is not able to draw the various alpha textures fast enough and they start to glitch. If that is combined with shadows, it can become really tricky for your graphic card to be fast enough, so to speak. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not a technician, so I'm probably not explaining it well, but you know, just to kind of understand what's going on. So as a driver or conductor, you have to be aware of those limitations to make sure that when you cross regions, you can also guarantee that people can still stay on your bus or your train, because otherwise you risk that you would crash yourself and the
Yes.
tour would stop. And you don't want that. You want to be sure that you yourself, at least, had done everything to make sure that performance wise everything is running smooth. So, traveling in SL, no matter where, comes with a few challenges to consider as well. And that is something that I find really interesting. If you travel, it's not just about hopping into your car or on your bike or whatever you want to do. It's also about being aware of your surroundings. How does the engine work of Second Life, and so on and so forth. So you actually learn also some technical aspects, which I find is important and is also adding to creativity, because people try to find ways how can we make sure that performance wise we have no issues with traveling, region crossings, and so on and so forth.
Mm. So, what would you recommend for a traveller to do to prepare to go on a road trip like this?
I myself would recommend to turn down graphics, to turn down um, water reflections, shadows, draw distance, for example.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, it also helps to, what's the word? I'm a non-native speaker. Sometimes the words are getting out of my hands and I forget it. Disable particles sometimes.
Right, yes.
Um, and to prepare a travel outfit, so to speak, with as few textures as possible. Keyword is texture memory. Not too many attachments. Yeah. So that would be pretty much my recommendation
Mm.
of getting prepared to have a safe travel.
It seems a little counterintuitive to turn the draw distance down when you're going off to look at things, but what would you say would be a good recommended draw distance to go for?
That depends on your computer, of course, and many other factors. I'm not going too much into details here because otherwise we would stay for probably another 2 hours. There's so much you can consider. Um, I myself am usually on 256.
Right, yeah, that's what I generally go for. So, say, turn that down to 128, or would 256 be okay, do you think?
Again, this really depends on your machine and how much it can take. I
Mhm.
myself am safe with the 256.
Right. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
My screen has gone all fuzzy at the moment. So I'm going to ask more questions quickly before I don't, in case I crash. So you've talked to, could you actually perhaps on the website put a list of um, groups that people could look into if they want to go and do some exploring?
Absolutely. So one of the cool things about NatureCon is that a lot of those groups are represented here right now. For instance, Drivers of SL, who's actually probably in about an hour getting ready to run a really long grid drive with all sorts of vehicles required in a really, really nice GPS HUD that tells you a point-by-point instruction on how to get to each different landmark and location. You know, groups like that
Mm-hmm.
are all represented here at NatureCon. So I definitely encourage folks to come out and explore and meet some of those groups. Another one I can think of just off the top of my head is Moorcroft, which is a location within Mainland, but within Moorcroft, you can ride horses and you can use other means of travel to kind of explore those lands. Those are two that I can think of off the top of my head that are here today. Yuki, who are some others?
Well, actually, you could say that everyone who is here is either or well, mostly into to traveling, exploring, and of course also living in those communities. Bay City is, for example, another interesting place to go and also a great place to start a journey. We have the Nature Collective. I think they have over 50 collaborators or more. Well, not collaborators, I should say collective locations, all of them nature related. Some of them are decorated with various seasons, summer, fall, even winter. So you can actually, that's what I do with my mainland tours. I usually try to find information where all those locations can be found, and then I try to put it all together for a little trip so that I can start, for example, at the continent of Sensora, which is just in the north of us, by the way. And I would do a sort of a round trip where you could pass by these locations. And at least with my tours, I want to encourage people to come back because time is limited. And that's actually what such groups like Drivers of SL are doing too. They want to encourage people to come back to
Mm.
discover and explore more and to make those connections. And that is what we want to do here at NatureCon too, through this shared interest in nature.
So are there similar riding groups? Because I know there are trails on the mainland that one can ride, and I think the same is true in Bellisseria.
Absolutely. Venus from the audience just mentioned again bike ride and scoot with Bellisseria, who uses those trails for equestrian rides and all sorts of different things. And so there are a ton of equestrian groups that you can join where they pick different trails to go to on mainland. One that I will call out is Route 6 High Mountain Road, which connects now with Cranston's Mauna Loa volcano that we have represented here, and is a whole journey that you can take on horseback as well as via train and car and rail. So a lot of the groups actually represent many different modes of transportation. Again, Drivers of SL encourages you to ride many different modes of transportation around our lands and railways and that sort of thing. I think Bike Ride and Scoot does as well. And then there are, again, specific groups, like there are railway groups who the passengers really just love riding trains, and they all ride their trains together on the SLRR and things like that. So again, there are lots of very specific groups, and then there are lots of cross transportation groups. And as Yuki was mentioning, you can also just plan your own travel. You can decide, like today, I want to just do the SLRR. You know, I want to hop on the railroad, and I want to start at Tulip Tree and have maybe a end destination in mind, but be open to what you can discover along that path. Because a lot of times, as you're riding the SLR or as you're riding along the road, and this is something that I specialize in, you kind of discover different little small things to visit, a cafe here or a bookstore here. Or those are the things that really get me excited about travel. Not only can I travel, but as I'm traveling, there are many different things that I can stop to enjoy. And these were all from just folks who wanted to donate their time, talent, and piece of their land, you know, for you to stop by and enjoy. So yes, exploration and discovery all around. Thank you for that.
So,
And
Mhm.
another thing that I would like to mention is, while today in this part of our discussion we are focusing rather on road tripping, of course, road is not the only way to travel. We can also travel by sea and by air. And for example, one of those groups who travel by sea is the Leeward Cruising Club, which is also represented here at NatureCon. And that's another way how you can explore and find great places where you can spend your time, your virtual daily life. Sorry. And yeah, if you're interested in sea tripping, is that the right word? Boat tripping, it would be, right?
Yes.
Then I highly
Yeah, boat tripping.
recommend to join the boating cruise that will be offered during the event duration. And today we will also have another, that's actually a really fun thing to ride, a bar barge cruise. Maybe you have heard
Bar
of
barge. No, I haven't.
maybe you have heard of Greg's project, Bar and Lounge it is called. He wanted to offer something that is kind of unique, which he didn't really see in Second Life yet, and decided that he wants to modify boats to put a bar onto the boat. And he came up with a really awesome looking barge. And this is much fun to ride. And not only that, he expanded it, that idea, for a train too. So both of these trips will happen as well, and you can join them and take a drink while you are either cruising along the shores of Second Life or riding along the railways.
So basically, we now have the Orient Express in Second Life, thanks to Greg.
You could kind of say it like that, yes.
That sounds like a great idea. Do you have sleeper cars as well, or is it just kind of the day trips that the Orient Express does?
I think that Greg just has just suited for day trips, but I'm sure, and I think that I read that he has accommodations as well. So I would definitely check out Greg's Bar and Lounge. Again, he's here and he'll be providing us with a a sea tour, so make sure, or cruise, sea tour, haha. So make sure to ask those questions of Greg when you hop on his boat.
I shall indeed. So, there is one other kind of tour that you haven't mentioned, which is another water tour, but this is an underwater tours, because there's so much to explore. So many people have either set up mermaid colonies or else for exploring with aqualung, underwater diving gear. Even here, I don't know how many people have stuck their head under the sea, because there's some beautiful underwater seascapes along the coast here. And there's places like the Safe Waters Foundation that have set up tours underwater. And of course, the diving, there are diving groups as well that go exploring in places like the Bay of Fables.
That's correct. Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry. Who of us?
Go ahead, Yuki.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
I like to talk about the mermaid part because I know you, Soull, are a fan of being a mermaid. I will focus instead of the diving part because we actually have the Second Life Coast Guard with us here at NatureCon, specifically the diving center. The Second Life Coast Guard is a roleplay group that is very well known and famous around the grid. They are making sure that our waters are protected, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And their contribution was or is called a plastic soup. So
Yes.
it is all around the topic of making sure that we don't litter water. And in their daily Second Life, they are patrolling. I hope I pronounce it right. The waters of Second Life. And what I find really interesting about this project is it's not just about role playing. They are actually trying to get a message across, which is that if you are going boating in your real life, don't forget to take safety measures like putting on a safety vest. They are, whenever they are going around the waters of Second Life, contacting people who they see and who are not wearing the safety vest. Sorry, I messed up my sentence. So they are contacting those people and asking them, hey, do you have a safety vest already? Here, have one. And the message they want to bring across is be safe also in real life. And I think that is something that is really nice to see, that people are not just thinking in a virtual idea of making life better or safer, but also in our real life. So this is the part about diving in Second Life. If you join the diving center, they will actually help you learning it with considering real life measurements and so on and so forth.
That's brilliant. Because actually, although I've heard of mermaid swim clubs, they don't really get you into the full mermaid. So you can't give safety advice as to mermaids in quite the same way. Do you think safety advice for road trips would be a good idea too? And I mean riding as well, perhaps horses, the equestrian ones.
I think so. I think that would be a cute idea, and I'm looking forward to someone creating some stops along mainland or perhaps from their home in Bellisseria that would share writing information just, along the lines of what Yuki learned and shared. I think that there is a lot of nuance, like Yuki said, when you're driving on the roads here in SL, and much more nuance when we're driving in our real life roads. So that would be an awesome idea that I look forward to supporting from someone in the community that wants to share that. I know through different groups and things, we do share like res zone information and things like that. But those general tips of, turn your draw distance down, understand your surroundings, and maybe turn on property lines so that you can see the next region corner coming up. Those things I've learned over my time in travel here in SL, but are cool things that we could have to share.
Mm. That's Venus has just made a good point that you could actually put those up at the res points in Belly, for example. You could put signs
That would
out,
be beautiful.
when you're traveling, think about these points.
Well, actually, those rest zones are marked in Bellisseria as well as on the mainland continents.
Mm-hmm.
There are signs put out, or you can see it on the ground. And apart from that, there are many people who have joined forces to make lists where you can find all of these rest zones.
Mm.
So you just need to know the right sources. There are people who have, for example, shared their Google Sheets where you can find all of them all around the continents. So you can travel safely. There are even HUDs existing that will tell you where you can find the next rest zone. There are many such kind of tools provided by different people who just enjoy traveling as much. And I come again back to that part of what I enjoy about traveling is not just I can explore, but I can also learn something in regard of being creative. How do scripts work? How can scripting help me to make traveling easier? Because those HUDs are sorry, are scripted quite obviously.
Yes, that's excellent. So one of the things that I love about exploring around the mainland is that the lindens create things for us to find. Some of them are quite old as well, and that's quite fun. I quite like finding really old builds. I don't know
Me
about you
too.
two.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorites. So I call myself a de facto SL historian in that I like to take journeys and create road trips for myself where they're based around a certain SL landmark. So when I
Right.
create journeys, and a lot of times, and when I started, travel, I would just blindly hop in a car and get on the road and hopefully not like sail off the edge or crash into a building or something, but I would just hop in and go, and I would pick a different part of mainland. I first started kind of exploring in Corsica, so I would hop on the circuit La Course and I would decide like, hey, I want to go see this particular landmark. And the Lindens, as you mentioned, have so many that you can find all around. And so I would hop and just kind of direct myself via the map to that landmark and using sometimes just that little red arrow where you indicate on the map that you want to go somewhere and you click that landmark's location and then you just kind of follow the arrow to go toward it. So very low tech there, but there are so many different things you can find. You can, point yourself to Nautilus and maybe go see some of the statues and things there, or go to the Sea of Fables or the Bay of Space Pigs, or, take an underwater journey. Just when you were talking, Saffia, during the Meet the Lindens kind of presentation, they reveal that there are some things underwater that we have yet to discover So
Yeah.
just hopping in the Blake Sea and just looking around, you may discover some of the Linden landmarks that are super old and that have been there and have been created as like Easter eggs. And
The fun part about these Easter eggs that the lindens and the moles are, um, I just lost the word again.
Don't worry.
that the moles and lindens are hiding all over the grid and the continents is if you have been traveling around mainland and had a look at what they have hidden in some parts, and then you go to Bellisseria, you will find that they have included their best Easter eggs at certain places once again. So yeah, it's really fun. Like, it's kind of an updated way, but
Mm.
there are some really funny things you can find there. And I find that pretty amazing because for me, this is also, again, a sort of connecting history with future, so to speak. Of
Mm.
course, things evolve, they develop, they will be better with technology and so on and so forth. But the ideas that are behind it, they are still as much fun as they have always been. So
Mm.
whoever wants to find those little Easter eggs, I highly recommend to find them on mainland and also find out how they have been implemented into the newer parts of Second Life. I will give one example. In Bellisseria, we have underwater tunnels. This isn't something new. We can find underwater tunnels in other parts too. For example, at Bay City, or there are two really cool underwater tunnels in the very south at, hopefully I pronounce it right, Jogod. You really
Right.
have to go and drive through it, and it comes with a challenge because one of those tunnels is actually on a region crossing, if I remember right. So it's really fun to find that out,
oh yes,
how
I
you
remember
can
that one.
how you can drive along it without crashing.
I know
Yeah.
that there is actually an island, and I can't remember its name, um, where it's by the Mole Bureau, I think, and it's an island. It's quite early. I mean, it goes back to 2012, but it actually has a travel agency on it with links to all the mole builds that were in place at that point. So it's like a tourist office where you can go and visit all those mole places, early mole builds.
Yes, there are also exploration centers that are placed all around mainland, and you'll find them just kind of tucked off on different places. I'm sure that there's a list somewhere that lists all the exploration centers, but those are also historical touch points because they often have some historical landmarks, some Linden landmarks, and that. So definitely worth it to again just hop in your car and explore because if you start at a landmark and then move kind of outward, you'll find a lot of different things that may connect, that may represent that same year of that build or things like that that are super interesting to kind of see and find.
So you'd recommend people join one of these groups to start their explorations, and that um, they should prepare for travel by following some simple steps, and then off. It must be a good way also, if you're doing one of these bus tours, it must be a good way of meeting new people.
Yes,
Yeah.
it actually is. Um, like I told before, I'm offering some bus tours too, and I have met many people who joined my tours and told me later that they went back to some of the locations that we visited and that they have joined one of these communities. Either being a part of the community if it comes to joining their activities and events, or if it comes to actually living in that community. By the way, I think the place that you've mentioned and that you meant is the Mole and Mole Traveler Agency. And I wanted to point out that you can, for example, discover and explore those LDPW places if you are a passport stamp collector. One of our collaborators here is the BBB, and they offer these passports where you can visit various mole places to grab stamps, and then of course while you are there you can have a look around what is also hidden there. There is, for example, one kind of a castle where you can find a treasure hidden somewhere, and it will give you a very old gem of I think sculpty earrings. So this is this is really fun. I think I rest out one, and I was amazed about the highland impact. Well, that's how old it is, but you know, that's the
Yeah.
fun about finding out more about Second Life's history, because look where we started and look to what we've come. It's not just about traveling, it's also about learning of the history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to speak on traveling, with groups, it's awesome to travel with groups, and it's awesome to find those who are similarly, impassioned about traveling by sea or by air and that sort of thing. But speaking for the introverts in the crowd, there is nothing stopping you from driving on your own and doing solo road trips. Solo road trips or family road trips are just as valid, and it doesn't require you to join a group or to wait for a HUD to be created, because you can do that on your own. There are on the marketplace certain HUDs that you can buy for 0L that will allow you to create routes on your own. So you could decide one day, like you just, wake up and I want to take a trip to a tropical place. I want to find a tropical landmark. Maybe I'll visit the islands that sit to the south of Corsica, north of Sansar, and I'll go to visit those, Linden landmarks. And from there, you can decide, hey, I want to track a route so that it's easier for me to get there, and you go and create that route, that sort of thing. Nothing is stopping you from doing that on your own. And I do encourage you sometimes just go and explore on your own. You'll find that sometimes groups won't visit the places that you're curious about, or sometimes there's a group that doesn't meet at the times that you'd like to meet, or sometimes you just want to travel on your own. I find a lot of peace and a lot of joy in just traveling and seeing the creativity of others on my own. So solo trips and solo road trips are certainly ones that I encourage. And there are no barriers to entry when you do that as well. So you can literally pick your favorite mode of transportation and just go. You can, as is mentioned in the in our audience here, you can definitely check the destination guide and look for those that are located on Mainland or Bellisseria where you have open roads. Pick one of those places and then just start exploring from there. Like there's so many different ways that you can explore and so many different ways that you can travel and plan and take road trips that don't involve groups. So just throwing that out there as well.
I know that at Fantasy Fair we have daily explorations of the individual regions, and the people who tour them are called the Company of Fair Folk, with fair spelt Faire, as in Fantasy Fair, and those are great fun. It gives people a chance to find all sorts. I mean, that's something that's overwhelming about Mainland. When I think how much we discover on a Fantasy Fair, individual region. The mainland offers so much amazing stuff that people can find,
That's
ranging,
that's
from
true. I don't know if you have ever saw people telling how long it takes them to travel from the very north to the very south of all continents, or the other way around,
wow,
depending
yes,
depending on your choice of vehicle, either plane, helicopter,
hmm
um, a boat, a sailing boat. And it makes a difference if you have a motor boat or a sailing boat, or by road. It can take up to, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours. I think the
yeah,
shortest journey I ever had, and that was by plane at full speed, was about 1.5 hours. And that was really
Yeah,
from one corner to the other.
hmm
So
that sounds about
there's
right.
it's so much. If you think about it, at least in my country, that would be around about 800 kilometers in 1 hour with a plane.
right. So would that actually be like a real representation of time traveling in real life in a way? Or are we going much faster or much slower?
Of course, in Second Life, we would also try to kind of mimic what is real life, but at least if it comes to planes, I think that we aren't as fast. I think we are a bit slower. You have to count in the limitations of Second Life, because you can't just shoot over all of the regions. You're gonna crash. So
Yeah.
you have to count in all those factors too. There is a limitation of how fast you can go.
Mm.
Absolutely. And that's something that I would suggest, like as a number one suggestion for those who are looking to take a road trip, whether that be solo or with a group, is to bring your patience and bring your understanding that it's not like real life. In some ways, in travel, you'll have to prepare for your car malfunctioning or, just quick road, stops in the road that you'll do or road closures and stuff like that. Whereas in SL, you'll not only have to prepare for some of those things, but you'll have to prepare to fly off of a bridge or crash into a building or a person in the street. So there are some things and caveats that may put a wrench in how quickly you may be able to get to a location, but those are all things that are 100% a part of the journey. I will say with much confidence that my favorite journeys and the ones that I've remembered and have stuck with me the most are those when I have those goofy things happen. Like I'm stuck in the air, or, I've lost my vehicle and I'm two regions away. I almost said the magical S word that I shouldn't say. But those times are honestly some of the most fun times. And so bringing your patience, bringing your understanding, and really being just open to the journey are all things that I would say would set you up for a successful road trip. Not only understanding those technical aspects, but just bringing a bit of empathy and understanding to your journey, knowing that all of these things that you'll experience, will happen, and the things that you'll want to see will be here, or they'll evolve into something cool and new. So it's never an instance where you can't just pick up and keep going.
Yeah, I can remember some embarrassing things that have happened to me. Like one time, I was in an air vehicle and we parted company at a border. It was my Dreamliner, which is a little sort of steam um, airship, and we parted company at a border. And I don't know where my airship landed up, but I landed up in someone's bedroom in Caledon. Most embarrassing thing ever.
Did you say hello, or was it empty?
Well, I didn't really give it time to res. I just
You just
teleported home.
run, and yeah, I mean, such things happen as Soull just explained. But there is something where people are always complaining about, and that is borderlines, or um, those orbs, those security orbs that make you being shot out of your vehicle right away within 0 seconds and without a warning. Those are things that happen. And it's the people's right to use those measurements to protect their home, right? But it can also be a really funny experience in at least in my experience, because if you are accidentally crashing into someone's home, and it could happen that your plane, for example, gets stuck there, and sometimes SL uh, is acting up, and you cannot delete it, something that happened to me. Then you have to reach out to these people and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but I crashed into your garden and I cannot retrieve my plane. I'm sorry, can you please send it back? And to me, it happened that then people told or asked, well, how did that happen and why? And you would start a conversation and explaining them, this is how traveling in Second Life works, and these are the little issues we have with the ban lines when you set it up. And they would become interested and ask, okay, so how does this work? I had it one time where this happened, and then that person wanted to know more, and I said, hey, you are invited to come traveling with me. And we did a little trip, and they loved it, and they understood why people are complaining about ban lines or security orbs, and they are very much willing to accommodate if you are just being nice and kind and explaining people. I really want to encourage that too, that people are not just being mad about others using those tools, but that they try to explain what's going on, because often enough they aren't aware of it. Communication is key in every regard.
Absolutely. Now, we are coming to the top of the hour, and what I would like to do to finish is to ask everyone here if they have a favourite location that they like to go to, or a landmark they think is worth exploring around. So if you want to type in your favourite place to go and explore, Mainland, Bellisseria, or actually private estate, and then I'll read them out so they get picked up on the live stream. So I'm including Yuki and Soull in this as well. I want to hear your favourite places to explore.
Well, my favorite my favorite place to explore is actually the Snowlands in Sansura.
Yes, going right up to Vengen and the Linden ski resort there. Have you done that?
Oh, yes. I love the Snowlands as well. I think that would be my favorite too. I was thinking maybe it was between the Circuit La Course because it's always changing. It always has fun things to see and explore. It's a nice even road, and it goes in a circle. So yeah, but I think Snowlands as well because I actually moved to the Snowlands between like October and January, and I stay there and visit the chalet. I love to do all of the winter events, the skiing and things that are offered near the chalet. Love taking the Onsar, which is the rail that goes around, which is such a beautiful, beautiful ride. Yeah, there's so much to do. I agree with you.
What else? Anyone else like to say their favourite place?
I agree, Venus. There are
Yeah.
too many to list. I think maybe a closing thought, because we have our next amazing performer and DJ set coming here next, is for road trips. All of you, please have fun when you're doing your road trips. You know, hop in with the group. There are so many groups that represent so many forms of transportation. So if you're an enthusiast by train or by air, by sea, you can find a group to travel with. But if you want to take your own road trip, feel empowered to know that you can hop in your vehicle, grab a HUD or not, and just go on an adventure. There's nothing stopping you. Yuki, what are your final thoughts, final shares?
No final thoughts. I think I said it all what I wanted to tell you. And yeah, I would like to invite all of you to stay a little bit longer for the next events that are coming up now after us. So enjoy music, enjoy other activities. There's gonna be some fun things coming up. Thanks for
Enjoy
coming by and listening.
exploring.
Thank you very much for talking to me today. This has been really interesting. And as Bain Finch said earlier, I think we now have the content for at least one more Designing World show as we go and take a bus tour around.
Can't wait
Awesome,
to.
thank you.
Thank you, Saffia.
Thank you, Soull, and thank you, Yuki, for joining me today.
Most welcome. Goodbye, everyone.
Right, thank you, audience, too.
Thank you.
And now I'm going